The Varn Dominion was the beating heart of the Galactic Empire, a jewel-encrusted monstrosity of bureaucracy, decadence, and dominance that had ruled over 1,000 species for millennia. It was here, in its golden hall of judgment, that newly, spacefaring civilizations were summoned to plead their case for inclusion in galactic society. The hall was filled with opulence and ego, towering statues of extinct species the Empire had incorporated, delegates in shimmering regalia, and translators whispering in 100 alien tongues. Among these shimmering giants stood a single, unassuming human. Cale Morgan looked absurdly out of place. No entourage, no ornate robes. Just a simple dark suit, no visible weapons, no visible tech. Only the quiet intensity in his eyes. He didn't speak much. He didn't try to curry favor. He bowed respectfully but without groveling. The moment he stepped into the chamber, the room seemed to forget him. The laughter began soon after. "He's mute," one Varn noble sneered. "Or perhaps that's the extent of human culture, silence," jeered a Zorn diplomat, her crystalline tendrils quivering with amusement. 2. The assembled alien dignitaries, humans, were amusing newcomers, a backwater species who'd only recently mastered faster-than-light travel. Earth had no galactic clout, no colonies, no ancient technologies. And Cale? He was either a fool or a sacrificial lamb sent by a desperate planet. The fact that humanity had sent a single representative with no guards or ceremonial guards was seen as either boldness or buffoonery. Cale didn't argue. He didn't defend humanity. He simply observed. He listened carefully to every speech, memorizing the names, hierarchies, and interhouse rivalries of the Empire's elite. He watched how diplomats deferred to the Varn, how others jockeyed for influence, and how the military, representatives rarely looked each other in the eyes, fractures in an empire that claimed unity. He noticed small things others missed. The twitch of an insectoid noble's eye stalk when a certain name was mentioned. The subtle silence that followed the appearance of Admiral Zartel of the Vorun, a warrior clearly feared but politically isolated. The sloppiness of a security officer disabling a hallway camera Cale wasn't supposed to see. But above all, Cale understood the game being played. The Galactic Empire wasn't strong because it was united. It was strong because no one had dared to challenge its illusion of strength. Its power rested on fear and inertia, not cohesion. And like all top-heavy structures, it had forgotten how to deal with things it couldn't predict, like Cale. In private moments, Cale sent encrypted messages back to Earth via covert comms hidden in his blood-enhancing nanotech. Empire divided, Varn arrogant, houses at odds, military strong but politically isolated. Suggest Phase 2 preparation. More soon. Back home, Earth wasn't idle. They'd chosen Cale not for his diplomacy, but for his quiet brilliance in asymmetrical warfare. A former intelligence officer turned strategist, he was trained not to impress, but to infiltrate, study, and destabilize. The Galactic Empire had laughed at him. They wouldn't be laughing for long. While the alien elites continued to mock Earth's silent envoy, Cale Morgan began planting the seeds of something far more dangerous than any fleet or weapon: doubt. In the shadows of the Varn Dominion, Cale moved with quiet precision. Officially, he was a low-priority representative of a minor species. Unofficially, he was a scalpel cutting into the arteries of the Galactic Empire. He never raised suspicion, never made dramatic moves. Instead, he capitalized on what humans had always excelled at: reading between the lines. He used charm sparingly, silence effectively, and questions tactically. With subtle prompts, he encouraged already festering distrust among rival houses. A misplaced compliment here. A casually leaked Earth rumor there. Within weeks, minor disputes between noble factions began escalating. Cale wasn't alone in his mission. Earth's agents, posing as traders, technicians, and scholars, slowly embedded themselves throughout the Empire. They didn't come with ships or guns. They came with information, open smiles, and helpful suggestions. They repaired systems and quietly installed listening programs. They offered harmless efficiency upgrades to infrastructure, which conveniently gave Earth a backdoor into communication relays, data cores, and, eventually, fleet command protocols. These agents never identified as military. No badges, no threats. Just polite, helpful humans who always seemed to be around when things mysteriously started to break. Kale's most powerful tool wasn't technology, it was timing. He knew exactly when to introduce a whisper to the right ear, when House Trivar accused House Maleth of espionage after a forged communique appeared in their private channels. War nearly erupted. No one suspected Kale's data slice had injected the false message into the system. When a regional governor in Sector 9 defected to the Outer Rim Rebellion after discovering evidence of a plot against her life, the documents traced back to the Imperial Archives, altered by a human technician posing as an assistant to the AI maintenance crew. It was all small-scale chaos, nothing catastrophic, just enough to stretch the Empire thin and make them doubt their own systems. Only one person seemed to notice. Admiral Zartel of the Voryun, a cold-blooded tactician with no patience for politics, watched Kale from a distance. Unlike the court nobles, Zartel had studied human military history after first contact. He'd seen the strange ways humans waged war, not with brute strength but with misdirection, patience, and unpredictability. Kale reminded him too much of Earth's quiet professionals from old war dossiers. Zartel voiced his concerns to the High Council. The human is not what he appears. His species may be weaker, yes, but they are not blind. This envoy is no diplomat. But the High Council, fat on power and pride, dismissed him. Let the human play his little games, they scoffed. His kind poses no threat. Kyle watched from the shadows as the cracks deepened. Civil administrators began questioning orders. Noble houses demanded more autonomy. Supply convoys vanished, some due to rebellion, others due to intentional delays orchestrated by humans. A strange tension settled across the Empire like a storm cloud no one could name. The Empire still believed it was unshakable. Kyle knew better. He wasn't here to fight a war. He was here to start one. The tipping point arrived not with a grand declaration of war, but with a sudden coordinated silence. The Galactic Empire had summoned its elite to a high-level summit on the core world of Varn Prime. The purpose? To finalize the subjugation of 3 rebellious systems in the outer sectors. It was a move meant to reassert dominance and remind everyone, especially upstart worlds like Earth, that the Empire's grip was still unbreakable. But Kale Morgan was nowhere to be seen. The human envoy had vanished days before the summit, quietly slipping out of the capital under the guise of diplomatic reassignment. No one cared. His absence was deemed irrelevant, just another footnote in the Empire's overconfidence. As the summit began, everything unraveled. At precisely 800 Galactic time, the 3 rebellious systems, Doros, Inix, and Koresh, simultaneously declared full independence. Moments later, their space stations activated Earth-engineered jamming fields that cut off Imperial fleet communications. The Empire's ships, relying on long-range command relays and quantum encryption, were suddenly blind and deaf. Then came the second blow, an EMP-style pulse that rendered targeting systems inert and navigation AI corrupted. Earth had supplied the rebels not with fleets or armies, but with information warfare packages, customized viruses, stealth jammers, and decentralized signal interference based on Earth's own Cold War-era doctrine. The result was devastating. Imperial fleets meant to crush the rebellion found themselves paralyzed, unable to respond or even retreat. But the chaos wasn't limited to the Outer Rim. Inside the very heart of the Empire, systems began to fail. Communications blacked out, automated defense networks misfired, transport hubs stalled. The Dominion's planetary AI core began running erroneous threat assessments. Civilian traffic AI flagged diplomats as insurgents. Dozens of noble houses panicked and activated their private security forces, some to defend, others to strike preemptively. In less than an hour, the most tightly controlled superpower in the galaxy began fighting itself. And then, Kale's voice finally echoed across the Empire. Broadcast from hijacked comm stations, his face appeared on every major screen across thousands of systems, calm, sharp-eyed, and unmistakably human. You laughed at the quiet one from Earth. You assumed silence meant submission. But silence watches. It learns. It waits. And when it finally speaks, and it does so with precision. Across the galaxy, leaders panicked. The laughter had died. In its place, fear, suspicion, and chaos. Kyle's message wasn't long. It didn't threaten. It merely exposed a compilation of intercepted messages, backroom deals, and secret plots between noble houses. He released proof of corruption at the highest levels, documents showing preemptive plans to betray allies, even war crimes long buried. It wasn't a warhead, it was a mirror, and the Empire couldn't stand the reflection. Admiral Zartel, now fully convinced of Kale's role, attempted to rally his forces, but his own fleet had been infiltrated with Earth sleeper protocols. His flagship locked down, navigation scrambled. In a single day, without firing a single human weapon, Kale had turned the Empire inward. Rebellions flared, alliances shattered. House leaders accused each other of conspiracy. Some fled. Others turned on their own people. Kale's silence had ended, and the Empire's collapse had begun. The Galactic Empire did not fall in a blaze of glory. It crumbled in confusion, in paranoia, and in shame. In the days following Kale Morgan's broadcast, what remained of centralized imperial control evaporated. The noble houses, already wary and fractious, split into warring factions. Entire fleets went rogue, turning against each other over perceived betrayals. Planetary governors declared independence to avoid being targeted as collaborators. The once mighty dominion that had ruled the stars fractured like brittle glass under pressure. Earth hadn't needed warships. It hadn't needed superweapons. It had wielded something far more devastating: truth, trust broken, and systems compromised from within. Kale didn't return to Varn Prime. He didn't need to. His mission was done. The moment the Empire's infrastructure turned against itself, and its people began acting on fear and instinct, victory was assured. What remained was cleanup, and making sure the galaxy didn't simply swap one tyrant for another. The High Council of Varn attempted to regroup and reassert control, declaring emergency powers and calling for a galactic unity pact. But the communication networks remained unstable, and few listened. Worse, many of the emergency protocols they tried to activate had been subtly sabotaged by Earth's embedded agents, rendered useless when most needed. Admiral Zartel, disgraced, and betrayed by his own command staff, issued a single public statement. We should have feared the quiet ones. He vanished soon after. Some say he went into exile. Others believe Kale allowed him to disappear with dignity. Meanwhile, Earth's representatives re-emerged, not as conquerors, but as mediators. Humanity did not rise to power by seizing territory or enslaving worlds. Instead, they offered structure, protection, and the one thing the fractured galaxy now desperately needed: stability. Kale himself returned to Earth quietly. No celebrations, no fanfare. He gave his final report to the Global Strategic Council, then retired to a quiet coastal village. His name, however, would echo across space for generations. Alien scholars debated for decades whether Kale was a genius, a ghost, or a weapon in human form. The phrase "the quiet one from Earth" became legend, spoken in the same breath as empires, revolutions, and cosmic upheaval. Entire academic disciplines sprang up dedicated to analyzing how one man with no army or fleet dismantled the greatest empire in galactic history. The message was clear. Never underestimate silence, especially when it comes from a species forged in adversity, chaos, and cold calculation. Earth, once dismissed as a fringe planet of unpredictable bipeds, was now a respected, if quietly feared, power. But it didn't gloat. It didn't demand tribute. Instead, it helped broker treaties, rebuild shattered economies, and form the foundations of a new interstellar order, one that valued balance over dominance. As for Kale, He never spoke publicly again. His story ended not with a crown, but with a quiet walk by the sea, far from the stars he had helped set free. But in the ruins of the old empire, in places where nobles once scoffed and sneered, a warning had been etched into every shattered hall and scorched command post. Never laugh at the quiet ones.